Ladies and gentlemen, today on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast, my guest is Partick Donohone. He is the president and CEO of Paradigm Life, one of the largest private financial planning and advising firms in the world. He has a new #1 best-selling book on financial freedom called Heads I Win, Tails You Lose, a financial strategy to reignite the American dream. Stay tuned for the interview with Partick Donohone.
Welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Emmett Muckles. Please visit iTunes, Stitcher, or emmettmuckles.com to listen to all the episodes for free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. I am your gracious host, named after my father, who was named after his father. And today, on this glorious day, I have Partick Donohone here. Now, I've introduced you guys to him earlier, so we're just going to get into it. How are you today, Partick?
You know, I'm good. You know, it's awesome time to be alive. You know, I live up in the mountains, and we got some snow coming. Hopefully, we'll get a good snow.
Ooh, dude!
Snow year this year. We've been deprived the last couple of years. So,
where are you located? What state?
In Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh, that's a beautiful place. I've been there a couple of times because I've done a lot of work in solar energy, and had to come out there for various items. But the lake is starting to get much smaller. You're starting to get some. It's just not as big.
We're in the high desert, so it's really. You know, I grew up on the east, in the Northeast, and you know, coming out here, it's just a totally different environment. I had envisioned, you know, the mountains and cold, but it's the high deserts. There's no humidity. It gets really hot in the summers. We have seasons though, but yeah, that's where I would say, you know, the snow is really important because you build up a lot of that in the mountains, and then you have, you know, essentially the melt off that fills up the, you know, aquifers and then obviously goes down into the Great Salt Lake. But yeah, the Great Salt Lake has receded, you know, for quite some time now. It used to be, you know, right up against, you know, some of the main intersections and freeways, but now it's receded by, you know, several hundred yards, if not more.
And this is one of the things that in the Billionaire Lifestyle you should do. You should travel this country and you should see all that it has to offer, because many people in the United States don't get further than 500 miles from their home.
Amen to that.
Please be a human being, which means live the experience. But we want to talk about finances of the Billionaire Lifestyle audience. Let's start with the commonality, which is the journey. So how did you get to the mindset and where you are today? What was your guiding philosophy as you moved through your life in the earlier days?
Sure. Yeah, I like I said, I grew up in the Northeast, and you know, was a hockey fanatic, and played a couple years in college, and got hurt, and you know, realized that I wasn't going to play pro hockey, and so you know, I started to really think about my life and think about what I wanted to do, and so I decided to do a church service for 2 years and left school. And when I came back, you know, my parents had they decided to move to Cape Cod, which is in, you know, East Coast of Massachusetts, and I didn't want to go back and play hockey. And so my brother was going to school out here in Utah, and I had some friends here that I grew up with that were here, and I decided to finish up school at the University of Utah. But right before I moved, which was New Year's Day 2003, a good friend of mine, who I grew up with, gave me the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it rocked my world, right? Because I was in a transition phase of my life, and you know, reading that book, my parents were both teachers at the time. I was actually doing an internship for the bilingual department for the Hartford school system, and I was smack dab in, you know, just like, you know, a school system, and seeing, you know, firsthand just, you know, how much, you know, influence comes from a school system. But then reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, you know, is just, I don't know, it was just a huge paradigm shift for me, and helped me really see that there was another way to live. There's another way to, you know, provide a meaningful, you know, lifestyle for a family. And I've, I didn't like just jump feet first into it. I mean, I would say that was the first trip, but then when I moved here to Utah, I got a sales job while I was still in school. Then eventually got into real estate, finance, and then eventually met the first financial planner for Robert Kiyosaki. Her name's Kim Butler. And she, in a sense, mentored me and pointed me in a certain direction. That's how I formed the company that I have now, which started in 2007. And I've just basically embraced that philosophy. And my experience has just given me some insight, using thousands and thousands of, working clients and their specific circumstances. And you just figure out a way to do things differently that provides, more freedom, more fulfillment, and an overall better lifestyle.
So you've been in the foray since about 2007, but you've recently come out with a book. One of the big things about when you venture into a subject or you start to find your passion to become that expert, people say the first thing you got to do is write a book. What took you so long?
It's a good question. Not that I didn't. I attempted it a couple times. The third try, right, took 2 years. But for me, I know a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business people, and just because you write a book doesn't mean you're an expert. And I would say it helps you learn something really well because you have to research it and articulate it and communicate it. But for me, I really not only wanted to talk about what I did, but also what I believe in regards to, a person's finances and what they're actually trying to accomplish. But also, I wanted to make it so that if this was the only book I was going to write, like it actually, was part of my legacy. So it's something my kids would read. It's something, that my legacy would have access to. So it's one of those things where I wasn't going to release it unless it really aligned with what I believe, what I teach, and also, is a good representation for my legacy of who I was. And so that was really important for me. So it took a while, it took a long time. It was really frustrating.
Yeah, I understand that. I've written a book myself, and just the process alone is kind of daunting. But besides writing the book, you have your company, which is Paradigm Life, and you also have some things that support and help people to educate themselves and to stay educated, because we live in a very dynamic time where one thing that works today may not work quite well tomorrow, because you have e-courses, videos on YouTube. Give me the skinny on all the things that people can ingratiate themselves with, because, people may not know me and they may not know you, but they want to investigate. So how can people find out more about all the things that encompass Paradigm Life?
Well, let me kind of paint the picture, the narrative just around, what we do and what we believe in. We have a much different approach to financial management, in the personal space. Right now, I think, the predominant philosophy is retirement, which is, save money for 20, 30 plus years and live off of that money for 20 years, right? Until you pass away. We do not believe that works. And, part of the book that I wrote actually shows that mathematically the likelihood of that happening, is basically zero. And so what we try to do is paint the picture of, okay, it's not that you have to change your investments or change your investment vehicles, but you have to change your mindset in relation to, what you are actually trying to accomplish. So I would say, first and foremost, my discovery process with, thousands of people over the years, right, is that people aren't really seeking retirement, and which is not doing anything. They're really seeking freedom.
Yeah.
And it's control over their time. And that's really the precious commodity that all financial matters solve. So the idea is with time, you want as much time as soon as possible, not to defer time and exchange it, right, for doing things you don't like to do in hopes that in the future, you'll suddenly have enough time to do the things that you want to do. True. I don't think that's realistic, right? And so basically our model and narrative is that we want to try to achieve financial independence as soon as possible, not retirement at 65. And so I would say the definition for me of financial independence has kind of three components, right? The first component is, you find a profession or a career that aligns with who you are and what you can contribute to other people. I think that, that dynamic of contribution creates a vitality that nothing else does. And I think people that live in a job that they hate, it doesn't matter how long they're there, it's going to ruin their life in the long run. So the idea is to discovering, meaningful labor where you're able to do that on your own terms. And I would say right now, it may take 10 years, 15 years, but the idea behind becoming an expert and the opportunities available to do consulting work or freelance work are unbelievable. And it's international as well. So looking at really any profession, there's opportunity to make money on your own terms, which allows you freedom to, as you said in the beginning, travel. I grew up with parents where we traveled within 100 square miles. And it was good. I won't, this is not a bash against my parents, right? But I look at how amazing our world is and how amazing the human experience can be, especially in this day and age with the opportunities that have been created through the internet and through technology. So the idea is that we're trying to achieve that as soon as possible, as opposed to, at 65 years old. So the first stool is first leg of the stool is to, discover that meaningful work. The second level is develop financial education, as you put it. And what we define as that is essentially learning what you are investing in. It's not trusting this person or this person or this person, but really accessing education and understanding what you're doing with your money. And then the third component is to invest in assets that produce cash flow. And that cash flow helps to, supplement income, where you can work 15 hours a week, 20 hours a week, and be financially independent. And the idea is to do that as soon as possible, but not to end. It's to always do that. Even though you don't need any money and you don't have to, go and provide contribution as far as work or labor is concerned, what that gives you, if you discover something that aligns with your talents, abilities, and your why, it basically provides you a better experience in all other aspects of your life, in my opinion. I think that's a natural necessity as far as the human spirit is concerned.
One of the biggest things that I've encountered, in my epiphany in life is what you said, time. And the other thing I realized is that the median income, particularly in America, is about $52,000 to $54,000, which typically can have two people in the household. That's two people making about $25,000 to $30,000 a year. And most people are struggling. But I think the reason people are struggling is because, like you said, their mindset is not in the proper place because they are psychologically being assaulted by television, by community. They're saying, you really don't measure up because you don't have the latest and greatest. So, there takes a lot of discipline and mindset change. So do you work on that with people to get to the 101 of financial understanding so that they can move forward in their progress?
Yeah, going to your initial question, right? We've essentially created all sorts of curriculum online, access for free to, really develop the mindset, because that I think is paramount. And, adding to what you said, right, it's most people go and look for a job, right? Most people don't seek to create value. But if once they realize that all a job is somebody paying you because you're providing value, then you can start to make the connection of, okay, well, if I'm providing a certain value and getting paid $25,000 a year or $50,000 a year, what do I need to do as far as contributing, right, that's at $100,000 a year or $500,000 a year or $1 million a year? And what that does, I think it expands the mind so that you go out and you'll develop yourself personally and professionally, whether it's speaking, writing, marketing, management, leadership. There's all sorts of opportunities there if you at least open your mind to the exchange of who you are with somebody else as far as value is concerned and what you get in exchange for that value. So the mindset idea, right, we don't necessarily do that type of coaching. That's where we put, whether it's podcasts or events or stuff online. But once a person is in that mindset, now it's a matter of taking what they're, doing with their money right now. What are their goals? What are they trying to accomplish? What are their milestones? And then we start to chart a course of how to, accomplish that idea of financial independence as soon as possible. So yeah, so it's not necessarily a mindset, but anyway, we're more financial advisors with that as the overarching narrative, which includes, really trying to discover new ways in which you can be more free.
So how can the book help people? Heads I win, tails you lose. What is that going to bring to someone? Is that just just for them to get into the culture mindset? Or is it a reference book that people can use? Or is it a little bit of everything?
Yeah, I would say it has a little bit of everything in there. There's the story behind how it, how what we do was created, but also we give lots of different examples, and we do it, mathematically, economically, where we'll show, this is what's said in typical financial planning, which is this is the return you're going to get, but in reality, this is how money works, and this is the overall return that you're going to get. This is how inflation works. This is how tax deferral works. And then we really start to break down that, what the rhetoric is in regards to financial planning isn't in fact what people think it is. And then we get into, ways that you can, essentially, find opportunities, whether it's, investing, or whether it's, thinking about the financial products that you have. We're very insurance focused here because of its guarantees and certainty. But then also we show case studies, which is, actual clients, right? And what they were doing, what that was keeping them up at night, what their challenges were, and then what they did to incorporate the principles that are taught in the book. So it actually shows case studies as well.
I like how you open up the book because chapter 1, Origins of the American Dream. Now, to me, I've always thought the American Dream was kind of a psychological myth, like this thing you can aspire to, but it doesn't resonate for everyone because, we're a very diverse country. And for us to just buy into this one thing is kind of, it doesn't make any sense. So why did you open up with that American Dream portion?
Well, I first tried to, make the case that the American dream isn't what we've been sold by, bankers and financial people, right? I think the American dream dates back to before America was even America.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's, going back to the 1600s, there was, a movement of those that were just, fed up with, the government structure, which was monarchical at the time, but fed up with that. And they wanted freedom. And, the Scottish Enlightenment, was, I think, one of the biggest influences of the founding fathers. But if you really look at what they were saying, okay, it's what human beings in general want, whether it's 3,000 years ago or whether it's today, right? And it goes back to what we were talking about before. People want to be free, and people have been given this human experience to take who they are and try to figure out the best way they can be valuable to somebody else, okay, whether that's in relationship or in a professional manner. And so these guys, which again, these guys were like, think about living in the 1600s. They saw, right, the rule of law and being told what to do and being essentially, enslaved in that type of government, right? But they also saw the importance of freedom because it had been talked about by the Stoics back in, Greek and Roman times. And, ultimately they knew that it couldn't be accomplished there. Therefore they came to a land where nothing really existed, and they pursued those principles. And, human beings are weird, right? We do stupid crap, but I would say at the same time, it's like the principles that I learned through those individuals are just as applicable today. So the American dream is what I consider freedom, right? Where it's that financial independence. That's what you're trying to achieve. It's what I believe everybody is trying to achieve when it comes to their money and their job. Right. But I believe that, the system that we have right now was developed under some flawed pretenses. But today, I would say it's easy to prove that, and minds are a lot more open to it because we're realizing that it doesn't work, right? And you can cite, the pension issues, the social security issues, the amount of debt that Americans carry, the mortgage debt, credit card debt, student loan debt.
Oh my goodness.
There's all sorts of indicators that are just like, listen, guys, like it's not working. So I think people are like asking themselves, like, okay, well, what do I do? Right. So it's been really interesting to see the response to the book. I thought there would be a lot more negative response to it than there has been. because it definitely is, against the grain of what we've been taught. But the whole American dream thing, it's just something I believe in. I try to do it every day where, I have a family, I have little kids, and, it's the most precious time in the world. But yet, you're still trying to balance contributing and children and your time. I just feel blessed that I, have a lot of choice around that. But in the end, I think this is something that people are going to struggle with their entire life. And they think that there's like some magic bullet out there, whether it's their 401k or an ETF or a portfolio allocation that's actually going to do it to them. And I just don't, I know that that's not true just based on my experiences. So our idea is just to reignite the American dream and allow people to live a better life, especially with all the amazing things that are going on right now.
I like the way you say, or the premise of time, because if you think about it, if you work a 9-to-5 job, that's 8 hours that you're going to consume at that place. There's probably at least an hour commute to get there. So from 8, now you're at 10 hours a day that you're committing just to try to make some capital, and you have to worry about making dinner. So you really don't have a lot of time. You got sleep. So you probably have maybe 4 hours out of a day consistently to actually live. So your premise is really on the mark with that. My segue to this is there are scarcity financial planners such as Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey. And yours is a different take on that. Why do you think people are gravitating toward these scarcity, saying, okay, I got to cut back, I got to save, I got to scrimp, we can't live our life so that we can hopefully be available to live later on?
Yeah. No, and I would say they taught, and this is again, not to knock on them, right? Because I think that they provide value. They wouldn't be as popular as they were or are, if they didn't provide value, and they provide value in some instance. And so, but what I would say is, the narrative around what is going on is missing, right? There are tactics for specific ends, and it's mostly to, get out of debt and to, not spend more than you make. But at the same time, you're still operating under the assumption that, you have to get a job, and you have to get a high paying job, you have to get benefits, and you have to be political, right? That's not my narrative, right? Our narrative is, there's something special about every person. And there's something that you're meant to contribute to the world. And right now is the best time in history to figure out what that is. And chances are, well, there aren't really chances. If you figure that out, you're going to be so damn passionate about it that you're going to, and not to say that you have to go quit your job and then discover it, right? This is a transition process.
Right.
But when you discover that and you figure out, wow, people are going to pay me for stuff I love to do, there's something so magical there. And I think it's a never ending pursuit. It's not just this one thing you find and suddenly you're free. It's a pursuit. But there's nothing more special than that. And that's the difference in narrative. Their narrative is more tactics to accomplish what stresses people, what is stressing people out and how to get rid of that, more so than discovering a way to be more free.
Yeah. I think about it as they are the 101. This is the financial
Great way of putting it.
101 you need to, but then after you get this under control and develop this discipline to be able to harness your capital, there's other things that you need. And that's really, it seems, where you come in and say like, yeah, you got to have the 101 down. But then once you're sitting there and you've accumulated and you're like, I can't do anything, there's something you need to do, which is live and explore your own passions to augment your life. So kudos to you, sir.
Well, and I'm still in the thick of it too, right? And it's, and I would say, the end, there is no end. The end's kind of like an infinite end where, you're trying to achieve more and you're trying to just take advantage of life. I think there's so many ways in which people can live, more fulfilled and happier. But it really comes down to a shift in mindset first. There's no tactic or no strategy or no lottery ticket or magic bullet that's going to do it for you. It's a mindset, because in the end, it's like, we know what it's like to have a crap load of debt and feel super stressed out. It's a mindset, right? It basically caused by the physical world, right? But if we're in a position where we have more choice, right? And we have more mix where we're able to contribute, but also be able to go on vacation and visit places and spend time with our children. That mix of life, right? It makes the 15 to 20 to 30 hours you are working so much more productive and so much more meaningful. And I just think we've been kind of positioned into this box mainly because of our society and the influence of the school system, right? That, our future has to look a certain way or else we're degenerate. And I just think that's a load of crap. And so I do talk about the education system. The editor, made me take out a lot of the pieces that I wanted to include in there. But it's one of those things where I think it starts in the school system and then it just perpetuates with, just the work environment, the job environment, which, still in a sense is, very similar to what it was 100 years ago. So I don't know. I think it's the shift in mindset that there is another way. And then it's starting to discover and learn and pursue that other way because it's a hell of a lot better than the typical way.
Yeah. When I started doing some research into why the school system in America came to being, it really came into being because they had an influx of immigrants who maybe didn't know how to read, write, and they needed people to work. And one of the biggest components was to make nice, obedient citizens who followed the rules. And that we transitioned so rapidly in this country. If you think about it, from the 80s, gas was $1 and it's peaked up to about $5 a gallon. So what you buy a car for now is what you used to buy a house for in the 80s, which is so bizarre. So people trying to save money, it's going to be a problem. So you need to have, as you say in your book, a perpetual wealth system, which is what you've been talking about. Are you guys traveling or are you basically just the online platform for communicating to your audience?
Yeah, we don't do live. I speak at maybe a half a dozen events per year, but all of our whole model has been online. And so we have a physical office here and there's 60 of us or so. But all of our work is virtual. So we basically do all of our consulting, our communication, and our transaction just through like Zoom, just using, the technology that we're using right now to do the podcast. And we've done that since the beginning. And so, that's really the best way to communicate with us and learn from us. And we have a lot of resources on our website. We're always adding more, and it's just trying to figure out, what we can say and do and provide in ways of education that will help people to get it, right? To either shift their mindset or once the mindset is shift to figure out what to do now.
I want to ask you this really simple question, and it's going to take you back to your history. So you were in the worker mindset and you had Robert Kiyosaki's book. How did you transition to this entity of you? Were you working a day job and you're like, I'm going to start little by little, brick by brick to build this item that's festering in me to the point to where you said, okay, this can be a standalone now. Now I can move forward and I can create and employ others.
That's a great question. So, I would say this is not the best way to do it, but for me, I was an employee, right? And I was in a sales department and that's when I learned, or met Kim Butler. So when I met Kim, right, it was through the owner of the company was involved with a group called Strategic Coach, which is up in Toronto, Dan Sullivan. And she was a coach there and also a participant in the program. And then the owner was as well. It's like an entrepreneur, business owner type of coaching thing. And so when I learned about her and what she was doing, I became fascinated by it. And then just convinced my partners to start a business. And that was end of 2007. And then, the whole thing, the whole company and the world fell apart.
That's what I was about to ask.
It was a crappy time to do it. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand business ownership, but I had signed documents that made me personally guarantee debts and made me, responsible for some of the other things I had nothing to do with, and so I had to, it was a very, very, it was an awesome start for just a few months. And then it was like, oh crap, like this is, not just reality, but, this is like the doldrums of reality. Mm-hmm. And so I had to fight for several years. Right. And my wife, we still joke because, she left for a little bit. And cause I wasn't, I don't know if I was the best husband and father at that time, especially when like you're in fight mode, like you're not a good person. I wasn't a good person. And she like, gave me some ultimatums and, and timelines and, being the belligerent hockey player that I am, I just fought through it. And, and I was like, I'm not going to go get a freaking job at 7-Eleven. Like, because that's where it got to. Like we were on food stamps for 6 months, or at least WIC. So she had to, be dishonest and say that she wasn't married. And anyway, it was bad, man. It was so that's not the best way to start. But if I look back on those times, right, it taught me to be a better person. It taught me to be a better leader, a better husband, a better father, especially. And, a big part of me regrets some of the way I was. But at the same time, I'm grateful for the experience because it made me who I am today. And I'm still working on it. Like, we were watching some home videos last night. I'm just like, oh, I was such an idiot. Why did I? Like,
that's a man thing.
But that's the experience, man. This is life. This is the life. And it just really comes down to working on yourself and trying to be better and trying to do more and try to help more people. And that's my mindset. It's the neural pathways are like locked in solid. And that's what I'm just trying to discover and do every day.
You know what? So all the things that we talked about in the last 30 minutes, that right there is the glue. Because, you see so many things online, particularly when you're dealing with finances and you're dealing with prosperity, you only see the good stuff, but people don't know life is cyclical. It's literally a roller coaster or a sine wave. You're going to go up, but there's going to be times where you come down, and it's how you really stick to it and fight, because you have that passion, that you will prosper. Same thing with me. I literally shut down all my other businesses just to focus in on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast. And people are like, well, how many downloads? I was like, I got like 500. This is when I started. I was like, I got 250 this month. But then over time, because I understood this thing that we're talking about, time, brick by brick, compounding interest, it doesn't only work in money, it works in life. So if you continue on, you will accumulate, and you just build on top of the foundation that you had before, just like you did.
No, and it's the mind. You're spot on. I mean, it's the mindset associated with failure and mistakes. And I think, social media especially has, created this environment where, somehow all humans are perfect, right? And we look perfect and we sound perfect and we write perfect and everything we do is perfect. But it's such and I look at really the influence of the school system and the influence, if you get an A, you're smart. If you get a D, you're stupid. And even if you get an A in this and an F in that, like, you're still stupid. And I hate, and I don't like that. And I look at, the strengths that we have. We're all different. We all have unique abilities. And, failure is some of the greatest, where the greatest lessons lie, but it's been framed in a way that we're inadequate and that we're less than something, and that, we're not worth anything. We have nothing to bring as far as value to the world. And I think that's toxic. And seriously, it's like, I say all this, but yet, I have a team of a number of people, and, there's failure all the time, and people try to either mask it or blame somebody else or play the victim. And it's something that's so ingrained in our society. And I'm glad we're talking about this, because those failures, in the moment, I felt like an idiot. I felt like a failure. I felt like I failed my family. I felt like I failed, my parents. But then I started to reframe, right, what that experience was for me. And I saw how beautiful it was, that it helped me really to think about life in a way in which I wouldn't have thought had I not had the experience.
People all often say that to me because, I pulled back 2007. It made me think. Actually, it was 2007, 2008. When that hit, it hit the fan. And it made me look at life and say, why do I have all this stuff that I'm paying for and I don't even use or know that I even still have it? So my first marriage deteriorated. It just didn't make it, but that was a compounding effect of things. The difference is how you look at it and say, I'm human. I can come out of this, and let's see how not to do that again. Let's see what we learned. Okay. And this has worked out in several instances. I remember this one lesson I learned when I had a DJ company. I did this party of a demographic of my age, same everything, right? I sucked. Nobody danced. They looked at me like I was a complete moron. On the drive home, I said, that will never happen to me again, which made me say, I have to think about the world from my customers' point of view. What do they want to hear? What do they want? And I've carried that over consistently throughout my life. And that's what I try to tell my children and my friends. Look at it, take your eyeballs out, set them on the shelf and look back at yourself. What do those eyeballs want to see? And then you can move on. And that works with finances. And this is why I'm bringing this up, because you may be in debt. You can always come out of debt. There's always a strategy to get you away from where you've accumulated this hole. You can always pull some dirt out and put it underneath your feet to elevate yourself up. And with the help of you, and because I like the way you framed everything, that it is not about so much sacrifice. Yours is more about a new discipline that you have to acquire so that you can be prosperous throughout your entire life. Because you're right. I thought about retirement. I am too hyper and my mind is going too much for me to, even if I won this lottery that it's $1 billion. My wife said to me, what would you do? I was like, I'd work. She was like, why? I was like, because it gives you a sense of accomplishment and purpose.
No, and that's what, and you're hitting on things that, I think about all the time. And, I've had a fortunate experience to work with people that don't need money. They're in that situation, but yet they're not fulfilled. And it's hard for most people to put themselves in that person's shoes. Okay. And this is where it's an individual experience and it's going to be different. But looking again at the whole motivation behind winning $1 billion, right? That's a great example. Why do people want to do that? Right? They want to do it because they want to be free and they want to enjoy their life. And I think that could be done. There's an analogy that I always use in relation to that, where, this Goldman Sachs like banker goes down to Mexico to go on vacation and charters this fishing boat. You probably heard it because I used to see you smiling, right? And this fishing guy, right? He has a super laid back life. He just does the charter 2 days a week. And, Monday, Wednesday and Fridays, he's, takes his kids to school. He comes home and, he washes the boat and then, has lunch with his wife, and then goes and picks the kids up from school. Right. And then he does the charter for all day on Tuesday and Thursday. So the Goldman Sachs guy is like, listen, like you're an amazing guy and you're so fun to talk to. And I just caught a bunch of fish, right? You should like save up some of your profits and teach somebody else to do this. And now you can have 4 boats. And then if you have 4 boats, right, then they could be chartered every day of the week. So you can, you may have to work a little bit in the beginning, but then, you can create a company and then you can finance the company and then you can sell it. And then the fisher was like, well, what am I going to do then? And he's like, it's the same thing I'm going to do now. I'm going to go have, take my kids to school. I'm going to go eat, have lunch with my wife. And, I love fishing. So I'm still going to go fishing. Right. So it's one of those stories where it makes you think where, money in the end, I think the attraction to it is that it will make people more free. But I believe that free lifestyle, right, where you're contributing, right, where you have passive income based on wise investments that you understand. And that's why, again, the lottery thing, that's why most lottery winners go bankrupt eventually with, lots of toys. Yep. But ultimately, people seek freedom, and part of independence and freedom is continuing to contribute at a certain level.
Awesome. So where can everybody find you? Give me all the websites, all the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the groups, the Twitters. Give me everything.
Well, probably the best, the book website, which is Heads or Tails I Win, .com. That's where it has, links to social media. You can buy the book, the audio book. Let's see. And then, so, social media, I try to be a lot more active than I am. But you can connect with me there. But all the companies, all the businesses can be accessed through that one web portal. So it's headsortailsiwin.com.
Awesome. So I want to thank you so much for being available to be on the Billionaire Lifestyle Podcast and share this awesome information, because it really resonates with the audience.
No, this is what I love talking about. It was an awesome conversation. Thanks for letting me have it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know how we do this. When you get out the shower, when you get up in the morning, go into the bathroom, be alone. Be alone with yourself. It's okay to lock the kids out. Take a shower, get out, dry yourself off, and then drop the towel. This is a problem. You need to be comfortable with yourself, how you came in this world. And once you've dropped that towel, move toward the mirror, wipe the fog off, and sit there and bask in the glory that God made you in. As above, so below. I want you to get close to the mirror, and I want you to look into the irises that are yours, because they look like nebulae and galaxies. As above, so below. I want you to think of yourself in your mind to affect your body. Think that you are beautiful. Know that you are beautiful. Know that you are loved in the mind, because it will affect the body. As above, so below. And then the next time you meet someone who has those galaxies and nebulae in their head like you do, treat them with love, honor, and respect as you would like to be treated, as all the doctrine says. Till next time, love you all. Peace.